right, I'm going to get us started. I think people will probably continue to filter in over the next couple of minutes, but I want to welcome you all today to our Winning Seamless Transit in 2022 event and celebration. My name is Ian Griffiths, and I'm the Policy Director at Seamless Bay Area, which, if you're not familiar with us, is a nonprofit organization with the goal of transforming the Bay Area's fragmented transit system into one integrated, accessible, equitable, and rider-friendly network. We first organized this event because we wanted to make sure that we celebrated the incredible victories that we've had in advancing seamless transit in 2021, and particularly in the areas of integrated fares, before we look ahead to preview what's coming up next in 2022 and how we need your help with that. Our victories last year were thanks to our network of supporters and advocates and volunteers, many of whom you're here with us today. It's thanks to a number of important funders that make this work possible and enable us to have full-time dedicated staff to complete this work. And it's also thanks to the leadership of several important elected leaders who sit on our transit agency boards. And one of those is our featured keynote speaker today, BART Board Director Lateefah Simon. We're so grateful that Director Simon is able to join us today, and she'll be speaking with us shortly about why seamless transit is important to her. After Director Simon, Seamless Bay Area's Advocacy Director, Adina Levin, will recap our victories around integrated fares in 2021, explain our strategy in 2022 to advance the seamless transit system. And we'll have the opportunity to have a few questions, and then finally we'll close with some special awards for some important advocates that have played an important part of this work. But first, we sort of made a late adjustment to our agenda because you may have heard that in the past week we had a pretty major announcement. Last Thursday, State Senator Josh Becker, who represents San Mateo County and part of Santa Clara County in our state assembly, announced that he is introducing the Seamless Transit Transformation Act, or SB 917, which is legislation that would meaningfully advance our region's adopted Transformation Action Plan to create a seamless transit system in our region. And that plan was unanimously adopted by our region's Blue Ribbon Transit Recovery Task Force last July. Seamless Bay Area is proud to have collaborated closely with Senator Becker in developing this bill, and we are proud to be co-sponsors of the bill alongside Transform and the Bay Area Council. SB 917 sets clear deadlines for the implementation of the Transformation Action Plan's key programs, including integrated fares and wayfinding and customer information, to ensure that we finally deliver on those commitments to riders within the next several years as a strategy to rebuilding transit ridership and making rapid progress towards our climate goals. So with that announcement and that recent news, we wanted to invite Senator Becker to join us for today's event to share his thoughts about transit and about the bill. We're thrilled that he's made the time to join us, and he's actually stepping out of a Democratic caucus meeting right now to be with us for a few minutes at the top of the meeting. So with that, I'm pleased to welcome Senator Becker.
Okay, good to be here. Can you hear me okay?
Your sound, we're not hearing you. We heard you briefly and now it's gone.
Can you hear me okay now?
Mm-hmm.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay, let me know.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm going to talk louder. It's great to be here. Yes, I am stepping out of a Senate caucus meeting, so I'll kind of keep my remarks in the medium range, but it's just really fun to be here. Remember, even before I was running, I hosted an event for Seamless, and we talked about what needed to happen and some bills down the road, maybe. And so it's really fun to be at this moment. And I just want to congratulate Ian and Adina and the staff at Seamless for the countless hours they put over the last number of years to get us all to these stages, the victories that we're talking about here and the work still to come. I also want to say I'm grateful. It's okay. I'm gonna put some here. I'm also I'm grateful to BART Board Director Lateefah Simon for sharing this event with me. I'm a big fan of hers, and she's definitely a trailblazer. I'm looking forward to working with her more on these issues. So good to see you, Lateefah. Listen, Seamless has tapped into this issue, which is core and intrinsic to life for our region, but a lot of people thought it would never change just because it was difficult to change and difficult to shake up. So again, appreciate having the opportunity to join this and join Sacramento and our state legislature into this conversation. And this bill that Ian just talked about, SB 917, seeks to address a top challenge facing the Bay Area: congestion caused by a transit and transportation system that's not working. Our Bay Area has the second worst regional congestion in the country, next to LA. And even after investing billions in public transit in recent decades, we only have about 4% of our trips are being taken by transit. And of course, with COVID, it's fallen off even more. Transit quality has also dropped, and we have buses stuck in traffic longer, trains running less frequently. People are frustrated by not being able to access these kinds of fast, affordable options. And that has repercussions. It means that residents can't access affordable housing choices and economic opportunities. It means more cars on the road, more traffic, longer commute times, more vehicle miles traveled. And means in part also that none of our regions are on state. None of the regions in our state are on track to meet their greenhouse goal reduction targets, including here in the Bay Area. Auto emissions are 40% of total state emissions, and they've remained stubbornly high despite our investments in climate change. And of course, public transit is
sorry,
big.
Senator Becker, we lost your sound just now. I don't know if you.
Okay, how's that?
You're back. Okay, you're back. Whatever you did,
I'll lean in. I've got mic issues here. But I was just saying that auto emissions are 40% of total statewide emissions. And they've remained stubbornly high despite our efforts to invest in climate change solutions. And until we have really reliable, affordable public transit, a lot of people are taking, it's going to be very difficult for us to meet our greenhouse gas goals. The status quo also means increasing inequality and the continued, we say, suburbanization of poverty. Poor folks in our community will continue to be pushed out and forced to rely on cars because they don't have reliable, affordable transit to take them into job centers, and they'll be artificially really confined to edges of the Bay Area. So right now, using public transit in the Bay Area is difficult and expensive for many types of trips. Transit systems are operated independently with little coordination and can be difficult to understand for a person who needs to transfer between systems, pay multiple different fares at different points in a trip, move between stations that are not co-located, and wait for an unreasonable time, long time for transfers. The learning curve is steep. It's not convenient, and it discourages people from using transit altogether. And it especially hurts low-income and transit-dependent riders, which is a huge problem. People shouldn't be punished for transferring between systems, and because of the lack of integration, they basically are now. Clipper is a huge improvement, but it masks the fact that few fares have actually been integrated. In fact, we don't even have one universal transit, a regional transit map. And we know from research that the way transit lines and stations are strung.
Senator Becker, we lost your sound again.
Yeah, we had some background.
Your mic or something.
Yeah, we know from research that the way transit lines and stations are shown on maps strongly influences how travelers use the system. So as you all know, it doesn't have to be this way. Other regions around the world have tackled transit fragmentation from Seattle to London to Germany. And we're not trying to reinvent the wheel, right? That's the message. The solutions exist. And so we hope that SB 917 can be part of the major steps to create a seamless and reliable and resilient transit system in the near term, and to continue to move forward on the conversations that we really should have had decades ago. So won't get too much more into the details, but one of the key policies is fair integration. And we can't afford to wait to act on this one. And again, I just feel like the costs are too high to wait and the rewards too compelling to do so. So I look forward to working closely with our partners to get this done. And I just want to thank you for having me here today. It's just a great pleasure to be part of this effort, this movement. And it's just one of the most exciting things that I'm working on this year. And my team, fortunate to have my legislative director who has great experience working on this issue with David Chu previously. And we're just really excited to engage.
Great. Thank you so much, Senator Becker. We're really thrilled about this bill and grateful for your leadership. And apparently other people didn't have trouble hearing you. Maybe it was just me, so I've switched out of those headphones. So thanks again for your time. Now I'm honored to introduce today's featured speaker and one of our, oh, and you do have to go, so thank you again. We'll see you later. I hope to do another event with you sometime in the future. I'm honored to introduce today's featured speaker and one of our region's most committed champions for transit and racial justice, BART Board Director Lateefah Simon. Over the past several years, Director Simon and the BART Board have been a powerful force for progress on seamless transit. And I'll just briefly introduce Director Simon with some highlights from her bio. Lateefah Simon is a nationally recognized advocate for civil rights and racial justice in Oakland and in the Bay Area. She's been president of the Akinade Foundation since 2016 and was elected to the BART Board of Directors in 2016 and re-elected in 2020. She previously served as the program director at the Rosenberg Foundation. She was the executive director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights of the San Francisco Bay Area. She spearheaded San Francisco's first re-entry anti-recidivism youth services division under then District Attorney Kamala Harris's leadership. And she's been honored with numerous awards for her leadership and activism. And in 2020, she was appointed by a senior advisor on police reform by Governor Gavin Newsom. And in terms of her relationship with Seamless, back in November of 2020, BART became the first transit agency in the region to adopt the Seamless Transit Principles. And that was a resolution co-authored by Director Simon alongside BART Board Directors Janice Lee and Rebecca Saltzman. And then since then, in line with the principles, Director Simon has strongly championed integration and the rider experience at the BART Board, including as the BART has received numerous updates on both the region's fare integration study and the Blue Ribbon Transit Recovery Task Force work over the past couple of years. So Director Simon, we're so grateful for your partnership and leadership, and welcome.
Well, thank you so much. And, hopefully my comments are not extremely repetitive. I'm so excited about Becker's work. I'm so excited about the opportunity for the building in Sacramento to sort of hear our story and hear our cry. So many of us have been thinking about ways, working on ways, praying on ways that we could have an integrated Bay Area. And transit is core to that. So for the next 2 minutes, I just want to tell a little bit of story. There's so much. If you have been close to the Seamless team, you know that we are consistently updated on what the work is, what the table accomplishments are, what the struggles are, the conversations that are being had, across the sort of our metropolitan area. But I want to just take a couple of minutes. And if you think about just in our small region, the many providers, I rattled them down today in alphabetical order, and I'm just going to say them to just bring light. You all know them. We're all sort of transit lovers, but AC Transit and ACE and BART and Caltrains and County Connection, Fast. I rode Fast for the first time a couple of weeks ago. The Golden Gate Transit, Napa Vine, Petaluma Transit, Rio Vista. Many of you probably have never been on Rio Vista. I have, and it is a journey. The Bay Area Ferry, Muni, which I grew up on as a young person, Santa Rosa, Caltrans, Sonoma County Transit, Sonoma Marin. I can go on. I don't want to leave anybody out. Tri-Delta, Union City Transit, Vacaville, VTA, Westcat, and Wheels. Again, we know if you add in the private shuttle services of our colleges, our universities, if you add in paratransit, and again, the hypermobility of the Bay Area, we have huge challenges and huge opportunities. The reason why I became involved in the conversation around transit equity is clear. As a disabled woman, as a legally blind woman and partially sighted woman, my whole life, as a young person till now, as someone with 2 children, I've had to make every single decision from where my children go to school to where we live to where we get groceries based on what transit is available to me. Now, in this later part of my life, I have a little bit more resource and I'm able to call a Lyft if I'm stranded or if it's very late at night. I've come from a long organizing meeting, but that has never, ever been the case for my transit dependent mother who lives in the Sunset, who is deeply embedded in a city that she loves so dear, but now has family members all over the Bay Area. As someone who is transit dependent and who decided to run for the BART board of directors, many folks said, well, you should think about running for other positions, other local or statewide positions. They need voices, for folks who've had experience single parenting, folks who are disabled, Black voices, women's voices. And I, to this day, see no better place for me than to be one of 9 voices on the BART board of directors. Now, this year, led under the direction of our president, Rebecca Salzman, who is a fierce and extremely effective leader. But I want to talk a little bit about why I jumped on the Seamless bandwagon. I mean, it's, again, not a story that is much different than many of yours. Growing up in the Bay Area, oh my goodness, in San Francisco in the Fillmore district and taking, a 3-mile 5 Fulton bus, walking 4 blocks up to George Washington High School, again, having transit only a half a block from my house. Later on in life, moving out, being pushed out of San Francisco into different parts of the Bay Area. I was a teen mother and raising my baby by myself in Concord. And I could not believe the lack of transit and having to, as a young mother doing community organizing, commuting with 3 different modes of transportation daily to a minimum wage job. When we think about the seamless promise, it is absolutely about bringing infrastructure together. It is absolutely about integrating fares. And I'm not going to talk too much longer because so much will be said as we talk about the road ahead. But to me, this work is really deeply about justice. Seamless, like many of the other huge, lofty ideas many of us have had over the years, won't come easy, and it will be a hard-fought battle. A lot of folks want to do things that they want to do, but let us always remember that writer, that non-English speaking woman who is going 6 different places. She's taking care of family. Let us remember the teacher who is living in Santa Clara County, but teaching in San Francisco. There's thousands of stories like this one. But for the planners and the organizers and the writers and the staff who have been working so diligently moving this lexicon forward, we should remind ourselves that this work is about justice, not just for the transit dependent now, not just for the ecologically driven person who cares about what's happening in our atmosphere, but deeply about how we think about the next 2 to 3 generations in the Bay Area. I want them to live in a beloved community where transit and mobility are deeply rights and not privileges, that we create not only integrated fare systems, but that we consistently knock on the doors of the folks who have the purses to create transit equity and fare equity for everyone who needs to ride. And that's everyone with a capital E. Right now in the Bay Area, riding is still a privilege. And we know as we move forward in this and many other movements that we're a part of, we hope that it will be a right. One of the things that has driven me to continue my work, learning from many of you all and being a part of the BART board of directors and making these very difficult decisions of where we move our dollars is the rider, of course, but this larger conversation about equity and justice in the Bay Area. Many of you have read Mimi Scheller's book on mobility justice. And it reminds me, the first chapter where Scheller talks about the power that we have as electeds, the power that we have as planners, the power that we have as writers to create a new roadmap for governance. Folks, if they knew how to do it before, they didn't do it. And no one is coming to save us. It is us. I will remind us that the cavalry ain't coming, it's us. This group I can foresee, we can foresee in the next few years, that teacher, right? Even that brilliant young man leaving San Jose University, who may in fact be a tech giant at some point, or he may be a nurse at Kaiser Permanente. We know that his story is 3 counties wide a day. We know that. We know that we live in a regionality that didn't really exist, just a generation ago. This work is about that beloved community. This work is about economic justice. This work is about, again, what Scheller reminds us, mobility justice, that everyone deserves to ride. And it's really about us putting people in positions who tell all the stories that you all carry with us, so we can make decisions for folks who are right next to us on the buses and trains in the morning. So I want to thank you. I can stay around for questions if you like, but I'm not the smart folks. Folks in the room, you guys are, and I'm just so pleased to be able to serve you. And of course, there's always room to do better. I'm working on that. We'll continue to work on that, but I live and sleep and rely on transit. I need it to work, not only for folks around me, but the selfishness, I need it to work for me. I will never drive a car. I will always need to be in a Bay Area that is thinking about the rider post my time on the BART board. So again, thank you for having me here today.
Thank you so much, Director Simon, for that really those inspiring remarks and really encouragement of this work. So with that, we would love you to, if you can, stick around. I'll turn it over to Adina Levin, our advocacy director right now, to summarize what's been accomplished and what's ahead, and then we'll have some time for Q&A for both Director Simon as well as Adina prior to us moving on to those awards that we were telling you about. So Adina.
All right. Well, thank you so much to Director Simon for those inspirational words, and particularly the words that remind us that it is us. It is the leaders that we have heard from, Director Simon and Senator Becker, the people who are in the leadership, and it is us who are the transit riders who are paying attention to what's going on. And that's what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about what we have done, we in this virtual room over the last year, to advance seamless transit, and what is coming forward that we can work on, us here together to move seamless transit forward in the year to come. And we'll also later on get to hear some of the voices, your voices, the voices of our community who have spoke up, on our behalf. But first, let me talk a little bit about what we've done and what we can do together coming forward. So last year, if some of you were with us at our last gathering, we talked about the 3 campaigns that we've been working on to make seamless transit a reality in the Bay Area, starting with integrated affordable fares, network management institutions to ensure a well-coordinated system going forward, and a regional funding measure to ensure frequent, reliable, affordable service that's absolutely essential to achieve that rider-friendly system. Next slide. And in 2021, we really made tremendous progress on fare integration. There was a study that we had advocated to get started back in 2019, and its recommendations came out in the summer, and they were very good. First, an all-agency transit pass, starting as a pilot with colleges, universities, and housing developments. For example, today, San Jose State students get free transit passes, but only for VTA. And that doesn't give you any access to BART or to Caltrain, and limits the opportunity for jobs and places where people can live. This all-agency transit pass pilot is slated to roll out in 2022, this coming August. And after the pilot period, they want to roll out an all-agency pass for everyone. The second recommendation was free transfers, which is slated to roll out in 2023 with the next generation Clipper card. And finally, another recommendation, which doesn't have a date yet because it needs funding, which we'll talk about, standardizing the regional fares, BART, Caltrain Express Bus, and Ferry. And the study showed that this was really a great strategy to bring back transit ridership, they modeled it to have as many riders as pre-COVID Caltrain. So a seamless system is an important strategy to bring riders back to the system from the impacts of COVID. But this is a big but. In order to be approved, these measures need to go to all 27 transit boards for their sign off. So facing with this fragmented system that we have now, we organized, and hundreds of you, including many of you on this call now, prepared and reached out to groups in our communities and reached out to board members and made public comments at transit agency boards. Next slide. And dozens of organizations signed a joint letter in support of fair integration measures. And this was equity groups, business groups, environmental groups, seniors, people with disabilities, housing groups, and so on. And with all of these individual voices and the voices of the groups around our region, board members who, some of whom were skeptical at the start of the study and at the start of the process, came around and observed in their comments that these are things that riders want. These are things that the community wants. And so it was a big victory in November when the Fair Integration Task Force voted to endorse the fair policy vision with those recommendations that I described. But we're still not done. Next slide. Because we need to go to all 27 transit agencies to get the implementation approved. Does this slide make you feel tired? It makes me feel tired, but we have to muster our energy and to be ready to go to all the boards to get those recommendations approved in 2022. But this process is not sustainable. Can you imagine doing this with every fare policy change and every service policy change to improve coordination step by step, doing this again and again? How do we fix this process? Next slide. So in previous, so back in 2019, we did research with some partners on places around the world that have well-coordinated public transportation systems. And we found that a common thread is that they have a network management entity that's responsible and accountable to ensure coordinated fares and schedules and wayfinding signage to ensure and planning the network so that it's connected and you can get from anywhere you are to anywhere you want to go. And we don't have this kind of institution in the Bay Area. It's missing. So back before the pandemic, we worked with Assemblymember Chu to bring out a bill, AB 2057, to set up a task force to explore how can the Bay Area change our institutions to manage a coordinated system. And that bill, like so many other bills, didn't move forward because of COVID, but the MTC, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, picked up that idea and created a Blue Ribbon Transit Recovery Task Force with representation from transit agencies, MTC commissioners, labor, business, transit advocates, people with disabilities, with a goal to recover the public transit system from the impacts of COVID by making the system more coordinated, more rider-friendly, more equitable, more accessible. And the outcome of that Blue Ribbon Transit Recovery Task Force in 2021 last year was big progress. The Blue Ribbon Task Force reached agreement on a transformation action plan with concrete next steps on integrated fares, on branding and wayfinding, integrated service, making progress on accessibility, and creating a connected network plan. And that bill, the bill that Ian and Senator Becker launched, SB 917, sets deadlines to move that transformation action plan forward to make sure that it doesn't sit on a shelf, but moves forward and creates change in the world. And importantly, that transformation action plan in 2021 had big progress toward that network management goal. It includes a business case study that's going to make a recommendation this year for how to implement network management for the Bay Area. And it's going to take all of us. It's going to take all of us to work together to make this good. And we're going to need to show up. And you'll be getting some information. Those of you who've been volunteering, you'll be getting some more information from us about some things that you can do this week at transit agency boards. And not least, we've made progress on funding. in 2021. The Transformation Action Plan included a recommendation for MTC to take the lead in funding for transformative change. And the MTC convened a listening session in December 2021 to lay the groundwork for a potential 2024 ballot measure. And some of you that are here came and spoke up. So the groundwork for a ballot measure is going to be laid this year. So please stay tuned and please step up, because as Dr. Simon said, it's going to be up to us. So I'm going to zoom out now and talk about how this work is leading us to transformational change over the next several years. Next slide. So that FAIR study started back in 2019, and this is bringing us to change in the world that we can experience shortly. The all agency transit pass pilot, assuming it's approved, will roll out in August, and the free and reduced price transfers in 2023 with the next generation Clipper card, and with funding, if we get that at a regional level, with fully integrated fares. The Blue Ribbon Task Force started in the depths of the pandemic in 2020, and it got us that Transformation Action Plan last year in 2021, and that network management study that's going on now, which can set us up for legislation next year to transform our institutions. And it got us that public convening for a regional measure. So we're going to need to organize this year in 2022 to lay the stage for transformative funding. So the message is that we've come a long way. There had been inertia for decades, and we've made really rapid progress over the last few years, thanks to everyone here. And but we still have work to do. So what we're going to do is take a moment to honor people who have driven these victories and to inspire us more for the work ahead. Hand it back to Ian
Sure.
For the some Q&A.
Yeah, so we'll try to please put your questions in the Q&A. We have time for a few here. I've got one here immediately for, I know the answer to it, but it's addressed to Director Simon. So Director Simon, what seamless Bay Area stuff is on the BART workshop agenda, or just what are you anticipating this will come up at the BART workshop agenda? I know the answer to that question, but you can, if I've been tracking it closely. But
I was just reviewing agenda today, and we are going to be talking about big initiatives like Seamless. And as you know, BART in the last 2 years, many folks betted against us, that we were not only going to not be able to run our trains, but that we weren't going to be able to continue with extremely important initiatives like Seamless and against the, our second crossing. All of these issues, again, because they're equity issues, are front and center to the planning ahead. So be there or be square, and we're all squares here, so hopefully we'll all be there.
Yeah, thanks. And I'll just add that there's two things that I'm specifically aware of to keep an eye out for. On Thursday of this week, there will be a discussion about funding, including the start of a discussion. My understanding of some of the first discussions that will occur at the BART board about a potential regional funding measure. So that's maybe an opportunity for riders to speak up and support that concept. And on Friday, there will also be a specific presentation about the Blue Ribbon Task Force initiatives and some concepts being developed for network management options. So we'll be getting in touch with you with a separate email. If you've been on our list for activism in those areas, most of you probably will receive that notification, because we do think that's another opportunity for riders to speak up and express the importance of picking those governance solutions, those network management solutions that have the best results for riders. And so stay tuned for that. Okay, there's not too many questions here. So there's one here that from John Mays that says, I've been telling my friends about Seamless Bay Area. One thing they ask me is whether fares will need to go up to support it. Is that likely? Adina, do you have any comment on how that, on that issue?
Yeah. So the level of fares in the integrated system, there's some more refinement that needs to go into what exactly the fares are going to be. A key factor in here is going to be funding. So in order to make fares available, we need to have public funding available for that. And that's where your help is going to be needed to support the funding. There's a initiative to potentially get some funding for transit at the state level now, and there's going to be initiatives for regional funding. So it's going to be important to have funding to be able to keep those fares affordable. And I think that's the best answer I can give you at this point.
Great. So I think we can come back to Q&A later if there are more, but I think because we're running a little late, I want to make sure we get to the awards portion and to hear some of these amazing members of the public who have spoken up. And we have some clips from some of the best public comments that we really want to share with you. So Adina, do you want to continue on with that portion, the final portion of the panel today?
Mm-hmm. Sure. And if you have thought of a question, please do put your question and we'll take it by the end. I'm proud to present awards to 4 committed advocacy leaders and volunteers who've helped make this progress possible. So first of all, I want to present an award to Rick Nahas, recognizing his outstanding work organizing around the seamless transit principles. These are 7 common sense principles to create a more integrated, rider-friendly, affordable transit network. There's 84 organizations and public entities that have endorsed the principles and put these values front and center in their work. And he reached out to the city that he lives in and neighboring cities and community groups in his area, and that has really helped create that accurate impression that seamless transit is something that is broadly popular and something that our leaders to support. I'm gonna go on to Evan Oliver. Unfortunately, the people who are here, the people that we're giving awards to were not able to make this event, but we're going to be able to hear the voice of Evan Oliver. Evan is visually impaired, and he's a student at San Jose State, and his personal persuasive comment at a meeting of the San Jose City Council last year really tells the story and communicated to that body about the importance of seamless transit and fare integration to him, and help the San Jose City Council vote to support the seamless transit principles. So hear from Evan.
I think these are several comments, including
transportation is essential to our community. Transportation is essential to our community, and the needs are not being met by the current system. The city stands to benefit greatly from a well-coordinated transit system that enables the city to accommodate growth with less traffic congestions and greater environmental sustainability in a way that provides mobility for everyone.
I've been a resident of San Francisco all my life, and I'm now attending graduate school at San Jose State University. And as you can imagine, it's pretty challenging for me to get from here all the way to campus. San Jose State actually offers a transit pass for students, but it's only for VTA right now, which isn't that useful to me as someone who would need at least Uni or BART and Caltrain added to make it usable. So as it is right now, I just always end up driving a car to campus instead. An institutional all-agency pass would be a game changer for me and many of my classmates.
I am legally blind, and transport is so important to me. Transport is the single factor that makes the biggest difference in my life.
And here's the rider's perspective. The jurisdictional boundaries in our transit system don't add value. They make the experience more complicated and more expensive, and that's about it. The fare for a trip from point A to point B should not depend on these arbitrary boundary lines. It should be predictable and, most importantly, affordable. And this is a serious matter of equity for current riders paying exorbitant fares and potential riders who are excluded from the system today by its high, uneven prices.
Thanks so much. And that included the first person you heard was Jose Romero, Simon Tan, Evan Oliver, and I am blanking on the name of the last person. So if someone can put that in the chat and remind me of it, that would be really welcome. And in terms of the great showing from the San Jose State students, I wanted to mention the award to recognize Tiffany Rodriguez for her advocacy and organizing in favor of integrated fares. Tiffany is a leader in the transportation system for San Jose State University, and she got the word out to San Jose State students and community members to make their voices heard on the benefits of seamless transit in the Bay Area. So wanted to really honor the work of Tiffany Rodriguez to help the people whose voices that you have heard. And lastly, I want to recognize Kenji Anzai with our Thought Leadership Award as a UC Berkeley Master of City Planning student and now a graduate as of January. Kenji analyzed how different regions in Germany develop different forms of network managers, or Verkehrsverbünde, I probably cannot pronounce that correctly, and lessons that these regions can provide for the Bay Area. And he has shared his findings and insights in several posts on the Seamless Bay Area blog, and really provide good, inspiring, practical case studies of places that have achieved seamless transit from a less coordinated state, and how lessons that we can learn from them to bring about that coordination for the Bay Area as well. So
okay.
turn this back over to Ian. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So let's take one or two more questions here, and then we will wrap up. So there's a question here that, from Fran Franks. How is the movement addressing the problems with paratransit? I can provide a brief answer to that question. Adina may be able to add. So yeah, we absolutely recognize that paratransit is a fundamental part of the transit system, and it has a number of very major challenges that some of the same as the challenges with the broader transit system, and some are unique to paratransit. There's a lack of integrated fares. It's extremely onerous oftentimes to take trips that involve multiple paratransit operators, and they're not well coordinated. So this is an area where we're trying to, we actually need your help, and we need more people that can help contribute to the development of what are the right policy solutions in this area. It is something that the network manager that has the network manager business case that's looking at the permanent governance structures that should exist. Paratransit is one of the areas that has been identified that should be managed at a regional scale, at least overseen at a regional scale with certain standards, so that individual paratransit operators do operate seamlessly. So that work is certainly relevant. Admittedly, it is an area where we want to fill out our policy expertise in paratransit. So please, Fran, would love to get in touch with you and others on what might be the opportunities to improve paratransit through these different initiatives that are taking place over the next few years. I think many of the core problems are the same, though. They do relate to the fragmentation of so many different, each individual agency operating without overarching expectations or the existence of a network manager that can enable the coordination more easily among providers. And then Rachel Hollowgrass asks, will there be a single place where the seamless community can check on opportunities to attend and participate in or submit email for public meetings, agencies, etc.? I will start. I'll start. Stephanie or Adina, feel free to add. So first of all, I think most of you are probably on our mailing list. If you registered for this event, you should now be on our mailing list. That is one place. If there is a form that we will circulate that if you're particularly interested in making public comments, we add, it's once you fill out this form, and there seems to be some links being placed in the chat right now. So make sure to fill out that action, that first link that that was just placed in the chat. So if you fill out that form, you'll be notified every time there's an opportunity to speak up at a transit agency board. And those emails will come out more frequently than the ones that we go to our entire mailing list. We're going to do our best to try to maintain a calendar. There is a calendar on our website, and we are going to look to try to put all the upcoming public meetings on that calendar. We have not been, we will, that's a project that we're aiming to do better on this year. And then finally, you know, you can also ask to join our Slack community, and that's another place where if you know, we oftentimes will notify people as things come up about the right time to speak up. So to do that, just fill out that first form again, and that, I believe you'll get more information once you fill out that form on how to join the Slack community. Okay, so with that, I think that is most of the questions that are questions as opposed to comments. I will wrap us up here. So as you can see, you know, first of all, thank you all for joining us today. It looks like we unfortunately lost Director Simon, but, you know, really grateful for her in joining us today, as well as to Senator Becker for his leadership. We hope we can do something with both of them again sometime soon. We've made some remarkable progress on integrated fares over the past year. Thank you to all of you for helping with that. We're going to continue to need your support. This advocacy does require, you know, staff resources as well as volunteer resources to make it happen. So one of the most effective ways that you can support us to continue this work is if you're an individual and if you're in the position to make a donation to Seamless Bay Area, you can do that at seamlessbayarea.org/donate. That is always welcome, and many of you are already monthly contributors. So for that, we're really thankful. However, we also really would appreciate your connections and your networks. You know, if you work for a company or an organization, or if you have a connection to a foundation that may be interested in this work, even a simple email or an introduction can be so important for us to be able to access new resources to really continue this work, as well as expand our capacity. We really need more staff resources to be able to do this effectively and sustainably. So we, you know, would encourage you to get in touch with us. My email is, Adina's email, and my email is on the website. I'm placing it in the chat here. We really encourage you to get in touch if you have ideas or want to have a phone call around ideas for connecting with people who may be within your network who can fund this type of work. Really appreciate any of you who have already made those contributions, or if you work for a company or foundation that is an organizational partner with us. Thank you so much for that. And we can really use your help to expand that base to an even broader group of people and ensure that, you know, we have the funding to be able to continue to do this, because it's going to be a multi-year project. So those larger financial resources are going to be really important, and it's something that we still very much badly need. So that is all I'll say. Thank you again for joining us. We're going to wrap up. I will stay on until 1 o'clock if there's further questions. But if not, you are welcome to, you know, enjoy the rest of your lunch, and we'll see you later. Let me see, are there any more questions? Simon Tan asks, can your recordings of public meetings be reused? I don't think that's, I don't know, I've never tried doing that. I feel like that wouldn't be, that might, I don't know how that would be received by an agency to play a pre-recorded comment.
Yeah, I think that the choices are to write in a comment or to speak live.
Yeah. Judy asks about encouragement for light rail in Santa Cruz County. I would just say encouragement, keep at it. I'm not familiar with that specific issue in Santa Cruz County, but certainly we've seen that, you know, riders speaking up and persistence is, you know, people eventually do listen. And especially, I think, say the other thing that we've tried to do is always base our advocacy on, you know, on research and on important priorities that we know are important to some of the elected leaders and to some of the bodies where we advocate. So connecting to those priorities can be an effective strategy.
Adina and Ian, this is Stephanie. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on kind of the legislative landscape now with SB 917. How are you feeling in terms of the climate for actually achieving this type of progress through legislation?
Well, I guess on one hand, I think we didn't mention it. There's 7 co-authors for SB 917 from all across the region. I will see if I can list them off. Senator Dodd from Napa, Assembly members, or Senator, no, I'm not going to be able to do this. Assembly members Quirk, Phil Ting, Mark Levine, Senator Scott Wiener, Assemblymember Lee, Alex Lee, and I am totally going to forget at least one of that list. But we've got some broad support, and I think that's reflective of the support among the state legislature for this. I think there's great enthusiasm because they've been hearing so much about it from riders. You know, the work of the Blue Ribbon Task Force has been well publicized, and there's more political champions than there have ever been at many of our transit agencies. So that makes me optimistic. I think you know, we're hopeful that we're going to have more support than ever from transit agency boards themselves. Hopefully the BART board with leaders like Lateefah Simon. So that's going to be an important part of the success of state legislation is getting those transit agency boards to be supportive or to work with us and work with the senator in figuring out how to make 917 work. You know, there may be some details that we need to discuss and some of the details around dates, but we hope that we're at a point where it's not a question of whether we're going to do these things. It's just working out the details, but being clear that these are all things that everyone agrees do need to happen. Legislation is important, but we can be working with those agency partners to be developing that rather than being, you know, having any kind of opposition to legislation as a concept, which I think in the past has been sort of generally the position that some have taken, which is that we don't need legislation. We can do all of these things through just voluntary action, and we know that is not going to be good enough for us to be able to realize these outcomes within the time frame that we know we need to address our economic and climate challenges.
I see that Suds Jane has up at the top talked about the need for an app that tracks where the bus is and where the connecting train is. And one of the important things that there is to standardize is the data. So I think when there is standardized data, that makes it possible to have you know, a variety of different kinds of apps, but that you always have the data about what the schedule is and real time where the train and where the bus and where the ferry is and so on. So standardizing data is a really important function of transit coordination.
Okay, well, I think we can wrap up here. I don't see any more questions. Thanks thank you all again for joining us and for your support. And please, again, do get in touch if you have something that comes to you with that you think someone we should meet that might be able to help support our work, or whether you're in that position